verbally asking the students that just basically
The commissioners.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's like
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And you would just say Commissioner Whitlock, Commissioner Ingram. Yeah. And it does not appear to be that.
Hi, Jennifer Jones. Nice to meet you. Oh.
Well, I just muted us, so. Okay.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is now 6:01 for the Planning Commission meeting on April 18th, 2023.
If you are a board member, please be sure to unmute your microphone when speaking for broadcasting and recording. The Community Development Manager is the host for the Zoom meeting. Speakers will be able to unmute themselves when recognized. The public who did not register in advance can usually view the recorded meeting on the city's YouTube page within 48 hours. For tonight's Planning Commission meeting, please dial 720-386-9023 and use code 104091*. For live Spanish translation services. Habrá interpretación disponible en español en vivo por teléfono. Llama al 720-386-9023 e ingresa el código de conferencia 104091*.
Thank you, Kim, and we shall now call the meeting to order. First order of business, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic which stands one nation
under God, indivisible. All right, roll call, please.
Andrea Amador,
Present.
Garrett Bilto,
Present.
Angela Van Dyke,
present.
Jordan Ingram,
Present.
Roger Jack.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And I would like to make sure that all board members have reviewed the meeting minutes from our prior meeting. So ask for approval of the meeting minutes for March.
I move to approve the minutes from March 7th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none.
I believe if you were able to review the minutes, you would still have the ability to vote on them, even though you were not present at the meeting.
No, it's not. That was actually something that was discussed in the last meeting as well. Yeah.
All right, I don't think the electronic voting is working. At least mine's grayed out.
You could do a voice vote if you'd prefer.
We got it right here. It's working. There are 5 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstained. Motion passes. We shall move to our first order of business. Can I have the attorney please read the cases?
So as you alluded to there, the first 3 matters on the agenda will be presented concurrently and of course voted on separately. They are as follows. Case number Z-544-91-94-23, Hampton Yard 8 LLC is requesting a zone change from Heavy Intensity Industrial District I3 with conditions to Heavy Intensity Industrial District I3 without any conditions for the approximately 20.08 acre parcel generally located at 3741 East 46th Avenue. Case number Z-994-23, Hampton Yard 8 LLC is requesting a zone change from Agricultural District, AG, to Heavy Intensity Industrial District, I3, for the approximately .041 acre parcel located at 3801 East 64th Avenue. And finally, case S-755-23, Hampton Yard LLC is requesting a consolidation plat to consolidate two existing parcels into one industrial lot and dedicate right-of-way. The property is approximately 20.49 acres in size and is generally located in the northeast corner of East 64th Avenue and Monroe Street. Presenting the case on behalf of the city this evening is Ms. Stacy Wassinger.
And Stacy, before we get started, for the board, I would like to keep our comments till after we have our staff presentation and then give the applicant their ability to answer questions in the spirit of trying to save some time, and we may answer some of our own questions. So thank you again, staff, and we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. As stated, I'm here to present these three, they're related cases all on the same site, so we're presenting them together as sort of a, for ease of understanding of the entire project. But each case will need to be a separate motion and vote. So these are two zone change requests, and then, as stated, as a consolidation plat request. So here's the vicinity map showing you the overall area, and then in the outlined in red are the two parcels in question under these different cases. So the little over 20 acres that's currently zoned I3 with conditions is the larger lot with the flag out to Colorado Boulevard, and then the smaller currently zoned agricultural pieces fronting East 64th Avenue. So as stated, these are the requests. The current zoning is I3 with conditions and agricultural. The I3 with conditions on the approximately 20 acres was zoned in 1991. The agricultural zoning on the .41 acres was from incorporation into the city. So the proposed zoning for the entire property is I3. The future land use plan does designate this area as general industrial. And these cases are being brought together because they are concurrent and sort of dependent on each other, as we'll get into a little bit as we get into the case. There is a concurrent development plan under review administratively that would need to follow these cases. So sort of the overall order that this would have to be done is the zone changes would have to be approved, the consolidation plat would have to be approved, and then ultimately after that, the development plan could be approved through the administrative review process, and only after that would any improvements or site work be able to be done at the end of the full process. And so here's the future land use plan. In yellow there, kind of in the center is where the overall parcel is there, and all of the dark purple is general industrial. And so this is a currently developed site, or previously developed as we'll get into with the conditions here. Those conditions would need to be removed for essentially any site or any use coming forward due to the nature of them. This is a portion of the site was a former landfill. And so there are documents in the staff report that kind of goes into that in a little more detail. But the applicant did work through an environmental assessment and discussion with Tri-County Health Department, and ultimately there were no objections to the rezone as presented. And the environmental planner for the city of Commerce City did take a look at all the documents and concurred with the ultimate assessment of the environmental issues. The proposed overall use, like I said, requires, under these cases tonight, would require or would be presented as a rezone all of this area, all of the subject parcel to I3 and consolidate into one lot, and that's the request before the commission tonight. And then following that, these are the 4 lease sites and on-site improvements. All of that is associated with the development plan that would only be possible if those zone changes and the consolidation plat are approved, recommended for approval, and then ultimately approved by city council. So getting a little more into each request here, the Z-544-91-94-23 is the larger parcel there that's currently the dark purple for I3. It was zoned I3 with conditions in 1991, and there were 4 conditions associated with that. Excuse me. And the request is to remove all of those conditions and zone to the straight I3 zone without conditions. And so these are the 4 conditions that were put into place in 1991. These are overall were more common with rezones in the late 80s and early 90s due to there weren't as robust of codes and review processes as there are in place now through the Land Development Code and engineering standards and all the other standards that the city currently has in place. So these conditions are basically were more common at that time, but are no longer necessary due to the nature of the regulations we have, the city has in place. And then D was very specific to a former use on the site that is no longer present. And so Z-994-23 is related to the small, just under half an acre agricultural piece. It does contain a former residence. It's no longer being used as residential, and it is owned by the same ownership group that owns the larger piece. So the request for this case is to rezone from agricultural to I3. And then the final case before the commission tonight is if those zone changes are approved, then ultimately they would request to consolidate under this case both of those parcels into one lot. There is right-of-way dedicated along the western property through this plat for Monroe Street. And then otherwise it would just be consolidating those 2 parcels into one industrial developable lot. So here are some site photos taken out at the site, with the left one there being a photo of this site and one of the areas that would be part of the storage yards. The property, or the photo on the right is the eastern property line, and that fence line is the property line, so that storage is actually on the adjacent property to this subject site. And then these photos are a few of the buildings that would be proposed to be reused through the development plan that would follow the zone change and subdivision plat. And these are, there would be, the site improvements would be associated with that, so resurfacing and things like that. Here's the, again, proposed site layout that's associated with that development plan. Just pointing out a few of the items there that they're proposing to add some landscaping along East 64th Avenue and Monroe. There would be a fire lane put in for access to the storage yards. And then overall, the gray and the blue are just showing you the 2 different parcels right now, but they would ultimately be combined into one there. And so the development review team analysis was that based on the request and the approval criteria that the rezoning and subdivision plats are justified, that this would allow for the development of a property in an industrial area that the proposed uses and the concurrent applications are consistent with the request for I3 zoning. And ultimately, there were no agency review comments remaining or objections to the zone change or the subdivision plat applications. And so these are the referencing the approval criteria for the zone changes in LDC section 2132.32.5 and for a consolidation plat in 2132.43.3. and that with these applications, DRT found that all of the approval criteria would be met. And so at the March 2nd, 2023 DRT meeting, there was a recommendation to recommend of approval to this body to recommend approval. Staff did receive one phone call from a member of the public with some concerns and requested additional information. I believe is here to speak tonight as well. And so with that, staff will conclude our presentation. The applicant is present with a presentation as well.
Thank you for the presentation. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Commission. Oh, thank you.
Please.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, my name is David Brehm. It's B-R-E-H-M. I'm with Plan West. We're land planners and landscape architects. The address is 767 Santa Fe Drive in Denver. And we're real excited about being here tonight. And I mean, I really want to emphasize that. Going through this for this presentation, I looked at the file and I wrote the first narrative in May of 2019. And I jokingly say I was younger when I started this project. So we're looking forward to get it forward and move it into some real productive use in the city. So Stacy's done a remarkably good job. I almost said, yeah, I really don't have to say anything, but I'm a planner, so I can't not say something, right? So it's in our DNA. So I do have a short presentation. I'll add a few details to it. And do I hit? Which one of these do I hit? This one. All right. There we go. I always like to start off with sharing with you our team. There's a lot of team members in here. There's a lot of technical information about here. The owners, Hampton Yard, both Tucker and Patrick are here tonight representing what they do and a little bit about Hampton Yard. We're the planners. There's a civil engineer. Even though, as Stacy said, this is not about an engineering review, but without the engineering review, you really can't do the zoning, so it justifies it. So we're not going to get into that, but Proof Civil has done a remarkable job with dotting I's and crossing T with staff to make sure it meets all the criteria. Survey, plating, environmental, like the landfill. We jokingly say I think it's hundreds of pages for that report that talks about the landfill. Again, we had additional geotechnical soils, borings for everything. So it's been thoroughly reviewed, analyzed, and vetted for compliance and making sure that it is a viable, well thought out, safe use once it is rezoned and replatted. I'm going to skip through this because Stacy talked about the rezoning and platting. I don't need to do that. Just to give you a little bit of a background from when we started this. This dilapidated building up in the left-hand corner was really kind of a shack that had two trailers next to it. And when I started, this was a previous owner, so Hamden didn't own it. When I went up there with the previous owner, I said, I'm not going in there. And he goes, yeah, I don't blame you. It's been removed with all the appropriate, requirements and permits and everything because it was a health hazard. And he bought it and it was just like, okay, we got to get rid of this. So the two buildings on the right are the two buildings that will be repurposed, and that's really sustainability. That's a really good, repurposing stuff is about the most responsible thing you can do, repurposing, rather than tearing down and building new. So they'll be redone with new water, sewer, parking, landscaping, et cetera. The lower left is a repo car lot that was removed. I forget how many hundreds of cars they had parked on there, and that was removed, again, with all the appropriate things. The one that really got us is this above-ground septic tank that was next to a trailer that they were using as an office, and it was just like, I came out there and I looked at that and I went, really? I'd never seen anything like this. Again, that was removed pretty quickly after we got started, and the trailer was too. And the last slide is, this is the existing condition on Monroe Street. And the plans that are in review now that will happen with the project once it gets rezoned and replatted, this will be all landscaped and improved after the right-of-way is taken up. And this is actually the west side of the landfill when you get in the next chart. So there's some real good improvements in plan here, just to give you a little context. So this is, one of the plans, but this is a summary of the site improvements. You can see the detention pond. It's in the middle of the project. You can see the loop road. Is there a pointer that I can use? Okay, never mind. We can just follow. Oh, there we go. You can see the loop roads that go through there for the fire loop roads where there's a water main loop. You can see the landscaping along Monroe. One of the things I want to point out on the northwest corner, there's an RTD light rail line about 400 feet away, and we include landscaping there. So when you're going by on your RTD, you're not looking into an industrial site. There's a buffer and a screen, and that was part of the discussion about it. And then the offices and support, there's the two buildings on the lower east side, the one being the ag site that's being incorporated into this. And you can see the blow up of that on the north with the new 64th Avenue site and landscaping. This is going to, and I'll say this again, this is going to raise the bar for what industrial should be. 64th is the public image of this site, and it will really be a great improvement for what that public image is after we're finished. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Tucker, part of Hamden, and let them talk about who they are and what their intentions are.
Great. Thanks, David. Hello, my name is Tucker Robinson, and I'm here representing Hampton Partners, the parent company to Hampton Yard 8 LLC. We've been in business for over 40 years and have experience in all types of real estate investment, but I wanted to highlight in particular another property in Commerce City that we purchased in September of 2020 off of 104th Avenue. And these type of improvements we think are indicative of what we're trying to accomplish at this property on 64th. So we completely, this is a Google Images aerial that doesn't quite tell the whole story, but we completely regraded the site so that all water would be directed towards the regional retention pond, just to the north of the satellite image there. We repaved the parking lot for the office buildings. We put new roofs on all of the buildings on site. We even roofed the wash bay per EPA requirement. We added new landscaping to the frontage. We installed a new privacy fence, all sufficient to say that we care how our property looks, we care how our property operates, and we want to go above and beyond to be the shining example of what industrial property should be in Commerce City, that I think the movement has been towards in recent years. And I just wanted to speak briefly on that. I want to introduce Pat Pritchard, who's a member of our team who oversees all of the construction. Pat, you can take it away.
So my name is Pat Pritchard. I'm with Hampton Partners, and I'm pretty much the PM on all of our projects, and that's not only in Colorado, that's also in other states that we are presently in. And when I worked on the 104th, it was quite an undertaking to bring that property up to the codes and everything, but we have such a great interaction with the city people in South Adams County that we actually accomplished that project in almost 16 months. And had no problems. We upgraded everything, including electrical, plumbing, interceptor that Schlumberger obviously never put there. And I want everybody to feel reassured that this is the same task that we're going to do at 64th. I've already taken the step and have dealt with the state to put the 64th under the VCUP program. We're already starting methane monitoring and everything with the landfill. We're going to evaluate all the buildings to see if they need any monitoring. We're going to make sure that any vents that are needed for that landfill will be installed, and all the grading, that all the water that comes off that property goes into our detention pond. So that's our goal, and we'd like to really move forward on this project. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see here. So this summary, I said it was going to be short, and I think it's pretty doing that. So some of this I'm going to read, and some of it I'm just going to skip through because you heard it. The replat's pretty linear. It's a pretty standard thing. It's just replat it to combine, a little point. It says 0.9 up there. I got to make it, that should say 0.41 acre ag site, but that's pretty simple. The rezoning, again, is I3 heavy industrial. The first bullet there is the really one that I really think is important. It removes a requirement, an antiquated requirement, 30 years old, that requires city council to approve every change on a piece of site. Well, that didn't work because a lot of things happened here and it never got approved and things happened anyhow. So now it goes to the staff with the ordinance to make sure that it is done well with strict city ordinance requirements. And overall the rezoning, when this is finished, it provides an employment opportunity for the city. The site plan, we've gone through the fire loop and all the fire hydrants and everything else. This will really bring it up to code. The new road is a safety thing. What I want to talk about is the capped landfill. They're not on most projects, but this is a reuse and a repurposing of what could you do. This is a perfect use for it. Storage, outdoor storage, because it's very strict that you can't put foundations in that site, you can't build on it, you can't do a lot of things with it. This is a perfect repurposing of an otherwise fallow piece of property. Detention water, it also meets a market demand. I3 industrial property for this kind of outdoor storage is very rare. And it's contextually appropriate because you saw the zoning map, it's surrounded by other I3 industrial property. So this is an infill upgrade in a lot of ways. And it does, upgrade the structures that are on the site as a repurposing. So, upgrades, closing it, it upgrades a historically fallow and poorly utilized site to make a viable asset in the city. It'll provide great opportunity, employment opportunities. It sets a new standard for what it will look like. 64th, industrial doesn't need to look like the evil thought that we all have in our minds what industrial does. 64th will be improved, so will Monroe. It will function as a very good industrial site, but it'll have an attractive presence around it. And most important, the replat, as Stacy said, and the rezoning meets all the city criteria for approval. So with that, we're here to ask for your support. We do thank you for your help. Thank staff for their recommendations, and look forward to and ask your positive recommendation to City Council for approval of all three approach. We're here to answer your questions, expand on what you want, what I missed. I always say we've worked on this for 4 years and I just took 15 minutes. I probably missed something along the line. So be glad to answer your questions and expand it on, but do ask for your vote in favor of it. So thank you.
So thank you, Stacy, for the staff presentation. Thank you, David, Tucker, and Pat for the applicant presentation. This is the portion where I will ask the Board of Commissioners if they have any questions.
I only have one question just for staff, just related to the Tri-County Health Department. Just looking, because there was multiple reports in the packet, and I just noticed that there was a comment relative to impervious paving and related to the existing landfill and monitoring. So I understand that that the Tri-County has given their approval to that. If you could speak more to that requirement, because I noticed that on the site plan, there's a few fingers of the asphaltic paving that will be going over that, just to understand how that will be coordinated and remediated. Thank you.
Right, and I speak generally, and then we'll defer to the applicant on the specifics of it, but the environmental impact did have, impact report or assessment, did make a recommendation that there be no impervious surface laid over the landfill site itself, but that the rest of the other portion of the site, the east and southern portion, could have some of that impervious, but that is kind of why you see the limits of the fire lane where they're at, because I believe they've placed those to the extent possible to avoid the landfill under portions of the landfill to that extent. And this is what Tri-County would have ultimately have seen this as well when they were signing off on that in the end, so that there was an agreement on where those extents were. But if the applicant has any additional detail, we defer to them on that as well.
Sure. So just like Stacy pointed out, we went through every procedure and effort to make sure that we weren't paving over any landfill area. In fact, about at the 11th hour, we did some additional borings and found out that where the road that runs north-south off of 64th, where that currently runs as the existing road is actually right on the very edge of the landfill area. So we shifted that road about 20 feet to the east to accomplish that goal. But in addition, what we talked with Tri-County Health about was installing methane wells and monitoring those, and that's also a part of the VCUP program that we've opted into. So just a couple examples.
Thank you. That answered my question. Thank you.
I want to take the time to thank the applicant for their presentation. I did have some questions around the detention pond and drainage. So your graphics definitely helped me understand in a snapshot really quickly for my questions. So I don't have any questions as well. With that being said, do we have any members of the public that wish to comment on this case?
Yes, I would like to.
Please approach the microphone, state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Jeannie Nuanez King, and I reside at 6530 Colorado Boulevard. And my family owns the property at 6641 Colorado Boulevard. So I'm pretty familiar with the whole area. Let me see if I can put this up a little bit. Okay, first of all, I want to ask all the members here, have you been down to that area? Are you familiar? Have you physically walked the area and understand what is in there? Just asking. It's a fair question. I mean, it's nice to see the aerials and the pictures, and you did a lovely job. I'm excited about the landscaping. But do you really know what that area looks like? Do you know what's down there? You know it?
I'll speak for myself, yes, because of past communications when I was on city council and what that site could be and what it looked like. So I don't completely remember everything, but for the most part, I was kind of joking in my mind that everybody thinks it's in Denver, and it's not. It's in Commerce City.
Right.
And the improvements that could happen would be good. So I'm interested to hear your commentary.
Okay, that sounds great. So originally, all that area used to be farms. There used to be orchards out there, but one by one, all of those farms were sold. And what was returned was nothing but heavy purple industrial, okay? I hope I don't get too emotional, but I'm watching what goes on over there, and I'm not happy. And it's not that because I can't afford to move out of that area, but right behind there to the east is a little area that is residential homes, very low income, mostly Hispanic, and they can't afford to move out of those homes. We are subject to smells, to open storage, okay, and I have to say that these folks that own this right now, they are doing a much better job than the people that were there before. At least they're big semi-trailers that are stacked too high, and it looks fairly clean. But when you talk about open storage, you're talking about cars that are dismantled. It's basically a junkyard, and we have to deal with that. It is bringing down the values of those poor people over there, and there's nobody. It made me sad, Stacy, when you announced that there was only one person from the public that came. And quite honestly, I've sat in my place for 30 years watching everything go on down there, and I kept my mouth shut because, well, my brother told me, it's got to go somewhere. We already have Suncor. We've got Waste Management. We've got the metal whatever that thing is, up there on Brighton Boulevard. Everything over there is so destructive. And I'm so done with those poor people over there, and there's nobody speaking for them. It made me sad that nobody would come to try and at least tell you a little bit about what it was and what it has turned into. I know you're not going to have a choice. It is already I-3. okay? And the improvements that these folks are going to do, I think, is going to improve it. But that's not to say that when they sell it, and if they do sell it, someone's not going to come in there and do the worst of worst in R3. And I just think that that neighborhood in general has just been really dumped on. And everybody has just turned their back on it. And when you drive down I-25, this is exactly what everybody thinks of when they talk about Commerce City. Well, you know, it was the council members years ago that just sold it out. It was beautiful at one point. So I guess the only other question I would have to say is, on your plans, Stacy, can you pull up the one that has the plans for the retention pond and everything like that? This is the only other concern I have. There is a restriction for the city by code. I think it's 5% of the lot, basically, that you're supposed to have a building. These folks here, because of all of the area over there that used to be landfill, they're not going to be, that's not applying to them. They're going to use the little tiny buildings to fill that requirement, okay? So basically, they're getting 20 acres without filling that requirement that all the rest of anybody else that didn't have any kind of landfill would have to fill. So, you know, a building would make it look better. It really would. They're still going to be able to rent all of the rest of that property out. They're getting the maximum use out of that property and turning an incredible profit, because they're not going to have to build. What would the size of that building be if you could require them to build a building on that 20 acres? What size would it be? 10,000, 20,000 square feet, something like that? 40,000 square feet? They're not going to have to do that.
Jeannie, if you could please direct your comments to the chairman of the board, and then
I'm sorry.
I'll direct the questions to staff.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I just thought I'd ask directly. Okay. But I know that there's a requirement for that. And these folks are not going to have to do it because of the landfill issue. But they're still going to get the money for doing outdoor storage. And so I'm just looking at this going, okay, I like what they're doing, the improvements and stuff like that. And like I said, they've been fairly decent neighbors. At least their property does look pretty cleaned up compared to the rest. But I'm not sure, I think a building would improve that site more. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you for your comments. So I will kind of ask the city attorney and probably staff. So Mrs. Nuanez-King implied or requested around the floor area ratio for a new building on this particular site. It's a large site. And I know that when I was on the Board of Adjustments for a very long time, 10 years, floor area ratio was always a question around large sites. I know that we're here for zoning and annexation and conditional use permit, but around the question, at least for the attorney, on a development plan would, and I know this is putting you on the spot for quick math of FAR, what that looks like on this site?
So I'm not going to do your math, but I'm saying, you know, at this time, all I'm familiar with and all I've seen is what you've seen, which is basically, as you indicated, the zoning and the consolidation plat. Whether there's going to be some sort of departure from code requirements through lawful means, I would expect to see in a development plan. But at this time, you know, it's not something I'm familiar with or know anything about, nor is it something that's before this body. And I will let the planner speculate as to whether that's anticipated or not. You know, and of course, you could ask that of the applicant as well. But I would simply say that even the answer to that question really isn't applicable to the approval criteria based on what you know, for what you have in front of you tonight, which again is the zoning and the consolidation plat.
Yes, and so the way I understand it as well, and I'm in agreement with the attorney at this point, that when we get to the process of the development plan, what that looks like, that's where the concern of floor area ratio comes into question. So not before this board, so this is where we are today. And thank you for your comments. Any other commissioners have any questions? Seeing none, I believe we are going, oh wait. Is there anybody that is in the audience or maybe signed up virtually to speak? Seeing none, we will go ahead and call for single votes for the individual cases, and then, so there are 3, and then the conditional use next. So can I get a motion for case Z 544-91-9423?
I move that the planning commission enter a finding that the requested zone change for the property located generally at 3801 East 64th Avenue, contained in case Z-544-91-94-23, meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such finding, recommend that the city council approve the zone change.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none, can we call for the vote? No. Yes. The votes are in, 5 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. Motion passes. Can we please call for the second motion for Z-994-23?
I move that the Planning Commission enter a finding that the requested zone change for the property located generally at 3801 East 64th Avenue, contained in case Z-994-23, meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such finding, recommend that the City Council approve the zone change.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jordan. And do we have any commissioner discussion? Seeing none, can we please call for the vote? The results are in, 5 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. Moving into the next voting criteria in case S-755-23, can I please get a motion?
I move that the planning commission enter a finding that the requested consolidation plat for the property located generally at 3741 and 3801 East 64th Avenue, contained in case ZS-755-23, meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such finding, recommend that the City Council approve the consolidation plat.
Thank you, Commissioner Ingram. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board discussion? Seeing none, can we please call for the vote? The votes are in, 5 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. And now can we move into case CU-130-23, conditional use permit?
The next case is CU-130-23, Waste Connections is requesting the approval of a conditional use permit to allow a recycling facility on the approximately 16.92 acre property located at 4150 East 60th Avenue, zoned Heavy Intensity Industrial District I3. Presenting the case this evening on behalf of the city is Elizabeth Tart.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Libby Tart, and I'm a senior planner here at Commerce City. This is my first case here. The case I'm presenting tonight is for a conditional use permit to allow large recycling centers in an I3 zone district at 4150 East 60th Avenue. A development plan is also included with this conditional use permit. Okay. So the conditional use permit request is on a 16.9 acre site in an I3 zone district, which is a heavy industrial zone district. And I'll go through the future land use in subsequent slides. So a little bit of history about this particular site at 4150 East 60th. The site is a former brownfield site that included uses such as a methanol plant and biodiesel plant. And the applicant has purchased the property and intends on using it for the large-scale indoor recycling operation with ancillary offices for their operations in some of the existing buildings. And a little bit of an overview about Waste Connections themselves. Waste Connections is currently located at 5500 Franklin Street and is a full-service provider of solid waste services. They're proposing to demolish a few of the existing structures on this parcel and to construct a 71,600 square foot materials recovery facility for their recycling operations. They intend on keeping the other structures for offices and to also have one building set aside for storage. But the materials recovery facility, I believe it was mentioned as materials handling facility in your packet, so my apologies, I'm using the wrong terminology in the packet, but wanted to clarify on the record, materials recovery facility. This will be a state-of-the-art indoor recycling facility with robotics and AI technologies that the applicant will cover a little bit later in their presentation. So the vicinity map, the area is located just to the south of 270. 60th Avenue runs across here as more of a frontage road. And the site itself is located in an I3 zone district, and it is surrounded by greater purple uses that are also I3, but wanted to point out that the site directly across to the west and to the south is Suncor, and they are located in a PUD. So the aerial view, just so that you can kind of see something from the sky, is the site is right here. It is bordered by the Sand Creek Trail over here. So the applicant is actually, in their plat, they are dedicating an easement to the trail to our Parks Department. But I just wanted to kind of point out the topography, and as you can see, Suncor is off to that western, kind of southwestern area. So the future land use for the site is general industrial. It is surrounded by general industrial, so like-minded businesses. There is a swath, a very generous swath of kind of open space that denotes the trail itself, and so that's where that's coming from with the comprehensive plan. So photos of the site. This is a photo from the south entrance, the south access point that would come into the site. And you can just see Suncor off in the distance. And then this is the main entry, and you can see Suncor as well off in the distance, but the existing structures that are right here. And then this is a photo of the site from looking from the north on down. So you can see some of the existing trees and just the fact that there is no sidewalk along this area. So with the conditional use permit, the applicant in their operations plan that's noted in your Exhibit 4 of your packet proposes to have up to 90 employees on the site, to continuously have the site manned with personnel. They'll be trained to ensure best practices at the facility, and they will also be inspecting the site daily around the right-of-way and around the Sand Creek Trail itself. The material will be screened. It all comes inside the building, and they will ensure that it's acceptable at the facility. Otherwise, they will ask for it to leave. There will be 110 parking spaces that are provided for not only the employees, but for a few guests that stop over. So with our sustainability analysis, I just wanted to point out in Chapter 15 of the comprehensive plan that Waste Connections is really trying to work through the environmental conservation and stewardship goals of this chapter by supporting waste reduction and diversion and waste and encouraging waste diversion, partnering to reduce waste in the city, and to repurpose a former brownfield site for a less intense industrial use that actually supports sustainability within the city. So with their conditional use, they also have a development plan that's proposed. And I just wanted to point out a few features of the development plan. It spans a few pages, my apologies. But there are some existing buildings that they are keeping that will remain, as I noted, for offices and for storage. So these are a couple of those buildings at the northern entrance. And then these are a couple of the other orange buildings that will remain. I believe this is for office and this might be for storage. They are proposing 2 new buildings. One is a scale house that will intake the waste and or the recycling operations and outtake it. And then this is the state-of-the-art 71,600 square foot building where all of the operations will occur interior to the site. And then these are just some other highlighted buildings that are showing the northern part of the site. And then I'll go into a little bit the detention pond in a subsequent slide. So with the development application, a landscape plan is proposed. The existing site does have some existing trees, but not nearly as much as the applicant is proposing. So as you can see in the green, these are the landscaped areas. They're primarily landscape buffers in the form of a landscape buffer that surrounds the site and enhances 60th and their parking area. I also wanted to highlight that they are proposing a 5-foot attached sidewalk that's along 60th. So that's kind of threaded in the blue. And then this is the existing Sand Creek Trail. And you can see that their property does, span the trail, but they are dedicating it to us. And then this is the other sheet of the landscape plan, just to depict the detention pond, additional trail corridor, and kind of that southern area of 60th, or northern area of 60th, my apologies. So their building elevations, the materials recovery facility is comprised of a CMU wainscot, brick cladding, which is kind of that darker brown that you see on your sheet, and corrugated metal building panels. The roof is a standing seam metal roof, and the color palette is comprised of varying shades of grays and browns. So with our development review team analysis, they found that there were no issues or concerns, that the request is in line with the comprehensive plan and our sustainability action plan, which is new. The goals for waste diversion, adaptive reuse, and repurposing of a brownfield site, and that Waste Connections itself is really expanding economic opportunities within the city with well-paid positions, and the addition to make us a more sustainable industry within Commerce City. So the development review team found this application meets all of the approval criteria for conditional use permits, and those are found in section 213230 of the LDC. But it is subject to 3 conditions that we have added. And those 3 conditions are up on your screen. These 3 conditions of approval are recommended primarily to provide adequate assurances of continuing maintenance for the fire department, the health department, and to the city. And these were requested, and they're in line with item 5 of the conditional use permit criteria. And staff and the applicant find these acceptable. So the development review team reviewed this case in a meeting on April 6th and made an official recommendation of approval for the case. And as of today, even though this is dated yesterday, staff has received 2 letters of support for the application, and there's no further public comment. But the letters of support came from the Adams County Regional Economic Partnership Group, and then a letter of support recently from the Front Range Waste Diversion Enterprise Board of Directors, and those are located in your packet. So that ends my presentation, and I'm available for any questions, but I know that the applicant is very eager to provide a presentation for you and answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Chairman, if you would allow, before the applicant speaks, I would like to just pass out the actual conditional use permit that would be ultimately approved by City Council so that you all have it to review. It was not included in your packet, but we would like for you to have it.
That would be amazing. Please approach the dais to provide the paperwork. Thank you.
And if it's okay to call the applicant up now?
Oh, apologies. I was
Okay.
reading the
Just making sure.
the conditional
Okay,
use.
I'm going to get their presentation queued up.
Applicant, please approach, state your name and address for the commission, and provide your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Well, I guess my personal address is 16703 East 104th Way as a Commerce City resident. But obviously, I'm Barrett Jensen with Waste Connections of Colorado. Obviously, we're looking at the property located at 4150 East 60th Avenue. Very excited to be here today. Both personally and professionally, this is a fantastic project that we're really excited about. I hope you get excited about it as well. Libby, fantastic job. Thank you. You made this really easy for me, and I appreciate that. But again, I just want to start off with kind of, who we are. Waste Connections Incorporated, right now, actually, we're over in 47 states and 6 provinces in Canada with over 20,000 employees in North America. 800 of those are in Colorado alone, and over 200 of those employees in Colorado are in Adams County. And something that we're very proud of, especially as we attempt to bring a facility here into Commerce City. We own and operate over 70 of these facilities across North America. So hopefully that makes you feel good that this isn't something that's new to us. And as far as Colorado in general, we're all along the Front Range up into the mountains and serve millions of residents across just Colorado. A little bit of sustainability with Waste Connections, really focusing, especially for this project, on the recycling. We have very aggressive recycling and waste diversion goals at Waste Connections. We're trying to increase our recycling, recovered recycling by over 50% of what we currently pick up nationwide. And it's facilities like this material recovery facility that allow us to do so through the acquisition of these facilities and through the deployment of this artificial intelligence and state-of-the-art equipment that we're going to be deploying in this facility. And so really, I know we talked about material handling facilities, material recovery facilities. Let's just call it what it is. It's a recycling facility, right? It's not a trash transfer station. This is for the processing and transportation of recyclables into the facility and out to the end markets that we sell to. It's not staying here, it's going to the end markets where it can be properly reused. And when we talk about state-of-the-art, really what we're saying here is we will be deploying the best technology that's available. Right now, across the country, we've deployed over 50 optical sorters. This equipment can do 13 times what a human sorter can do on a sort line. And it can learn itself up to about 33 times what a human sorter could do on a sort line. So this is the most advanced technology that we have in the industry today. And again, we have over 50 of these deployed throughout the country. We propose to deploy 12 just in this facility alone. It would be a nation-leading project for the solid waste industry as it relates to recycling and waste diversion. And so what we're requesting from the commission today is a recommendation to move forward with this, one of the largest investments in recycling and waste diversion infrastructure ever in Colorado. And so how do we get here, right? Our site selection, how do we get to this area? Well, the main thing is, right, it's proximal to the waste shed, meaning that a majority of the population is in this area. We can get to it so that these trucks aren't driving out to the western slopes, so that we're not putting more trucks on the road. It's about the sustainability. It's about the carbon footprint. These things are important to us, as we know that it's important to you and the rest of the city. This project being a green industrial project, I know we heard some comments earlier about industrial can be bad. That's not true, right? This is a green project. Industrial projects such as this can elevate what industrial properties are perceived as. And so one of the reasons why we're excited to bring this to your attention today. And again, in this project, we have future access to rail, right, and just normal transportation markets, bringing that carbon emission footprint down. And again, one of the most important pieces is an optimal use of a brownfield site that increases city image and becomes a nation-recognized green city. People will go, where's that state-of-the-art facility? Oh, that's Commerce City, right? That's exactly what they're gonna say. So my pictures might not be as great as yours, Libby, but really what we're looking at is the site as of today, right? We've seen graffiti, we've seen illegal dumping. Of course, we're going to pick those things up. It's important to us that we're good stewards of our environment, right? But this site's been abandoned since 2016, and we want to provide an optimal use for Commerce City to use this area. So overall, this is our overall site plan here. And really all I want to touch on here is that you're going to see the entrance there on the upper left-hand side. And what's in gray is going to be what we're going to keep. We're going to do our best to not just make this a demo and construction project that all goes to the landfill. We're going to use whatever we can. And so that's important to us. And we're going to use, again, whatever we can to make sure that we're creating the least amount of waste as possible. It's all about diversion. And then you can see the facility inside, and one of the most important parts of this project, that it's going to be conducted indoors. Nothing's going to be outside. I know we've seen this as well, but again, just reinforcing, this is what people are going to see. They're not going to see bales of recycling all over the facility. Everything is going to be conducted indoors, so as not to become a nuisance. This is not obviously the facility, but this is what the facility would look like, where vehicles would be coming in the bay doors, unloading within the facility, where then a front-end loader or an excavator would be loading this onto the conveyor belt, which then all of the optical sorters and the AI would be processing this material at a very rapid rate, getting it to where it needs to go. Again, another look at what it would look like inside of the facility. Again, all enclosed. Very important part of this project. And I really just want to talk about a few of the operations highlights with what we believe is very reasonable hours. But really the most important thing is that when it comes to stuff like this, it is so important and imperative to us as our number one value being safety, that our people, our leadership is properly trained in the waste characterization of these materials to ensure that we are recognizing these unacceptable materials and getting them to where they need to go, which is not the recycling facility. I will not read through all of these. You're more than welcome to, but this is really our acknowledgement of, hey, we are, accepting that these approval criteria. I only want to focus on really the last two, which says, one of the following criteria is met. We're meeting both of those. We think it's really important because we understand that comprehensive plans are a guiding document for the city, but it's also really important to us to make sure that we're in line with what the city wants to do. That's extremely important to us, that we're in line with what you want to do. And I know that Libby laid those out before, but EC 5, EC 5.1, EC 5.2 that you brought up, Libby, those are extremely important, and we recognize those as well. But also the vision and goals, which is to become a green city where viable. This is that opportunity, this is that chance to be that green city. And again, I want to touch on all these as well, but I think it's really important from an economic perspective, right? We're going to add 90 plus jobs, and I want to clarify that 60 of those will be Waste Connections direct employees, and then we expect 30 plus jobs indirect. That's through those driving trucks, through the rail, through those that are working on the artificial intelligence, which are good paying jobs, which we have up to about $125,000 a year to work on stuff like that. And then again, a very important piece is creating a beneficial use to a previously abandoned and blighted property, enhancing the image of Commerce City. And then one, I know it's part of code, but one of my favorites is, as part of this project, planting 560 new trees, shrubs, and ornamental grasses. That's huge. Huge part of the environmental impact. And something that we know will be fantastic for the site, be fantastic for Commerce City. And again, it's just stressing that all this is going to be conducted indoors. The material handling, the unloading, the processing, the reloading activities, all going to be conducted indoors. And that's intentional. Intentional to make sure that we're the best stewards of our property as possible. And then benefits for Commerce City. There's a lot going on in the state. There's a lot going on across the country as it relates to recycling and waste diversion. The state has very aggressive goals for waste diversion, and we believe that this is a great opportunity for Commerce City to attract more green businesses through the support of projects such as this. And we also believe as well that, we know that Commerce City will be recognized as advocates of waste diversion and green and innovative technologies because we expect this to get nationwide attention. It will. This is a big deal. It'll be one of the most advanced systems in the United States. So with that, again, we're requesting your recommendation of approval of our conditional use permit on this nation-leading, state-of-the-art recycling facility. Again, this is an opportunity for Commerce City to really be on the leading edge of recycling technology through a partnership, as it states in the comprehensive plan, with a private company to increase waste diversion in the state so that we can be more sustainable for our community and for our citizens. So I'm here to answer any questions. I've got a bunch of people as well to answer some questions if I can't answer it for you, but I appreciate your time and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for the applicant presentation and staff presentation. Do we have any questions of the commission? Jordan Ingram, Commissioner?
Yeah, so I really like the use of this property, the look of it next to Sand Creek and, leaving the easements and all that stuff. So my question's not around the use of the property, but I had a question around a traffic study on 60th and the effect on Brighton because of the amount of recycling trucks and, if there's gonna be 90 employees, coming in at that 7 o'clock and 6 o'clock when everybody's using Brighton to go downtown from Commerce City, if there was a thorough traffic study completed.
Yes.
And you kind of touched on it too, the, future use of rail potentially, because that spurs right there.
Which will inevitably bring that down. We did conduct a traffic study. If we need to go into more depth, we do have our consultants, but it did conclude that there was minimal impact to the surrounding area. We have on a daily average about 452 vehicles utilizing our facility. 85 of those would be recycle trucks. The rest are passenger vehicles, which is minimal in comparison to many projects, whether they're industrial or mixed use around that area. It was very minimal impact.
Question, Commissioner?
So, yes, I too appreciate what you're trying to do through the project, but I have a few questions just related to your operational plan. So there was one question noted to something in here about unacceptable materials being removed from the site and being reloaded onto a customer that's being, delivered to your facility. What is your process to ensure that that doesn't end up in the community once they leave the site? And then the other question would be, we heard about managing incidental waste within the constraints of your site. But as we heard from the community, that part of Commerce City is traditionally looked down upon, that not adding incidental waste just with recycle trucks, because just driving down Brighton with other trash, that's it's a waste facility, but incidental waste happening in that part of the city.
Yes.
Just to look out for those citizens.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for your question. I do want to make sure that we understand the difference between the waste and recycling. We treat them totally different, right? We're not going to we do a lot of things similar. And then just to answer your first question, Commissioner, we own and operate many post-collection facilities, whether they're recycling facilities or landfills. We have waste handling procedures that would be implemented at this facility, just like we would at a landfill, to ensure that anything that we did or do find, it's separated from whether the drop-off or the public or whatever that looks like, and we have the resources to get that, whether it's trash, we can take it to our landfill or to a landfill, or hazardous waste. We have the ability, and we would have the waste handling plan to be able to identify those. Our people would be trained upon hire and on an annual basis to identify those and to know where those materials would be going. We have those resources, have those contacts to ensure that those do not go back out into the community or stay in the community, but that they go to where they need to be properly disposed of and or recycled. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
And then to the incidental waste. So I can speak to this from personal experiences. When I was in college, I was actually a route driver for a municipality in Texas on a recycling route. So knowing how there is a lot of, and it was delivering to a similar facility, which with hand sorters, but there was a lot of incidental waste in that process. So what would you do to ensure that, to limit the incidental waste, especially that you're near green space? And we've talked about the green belt with the Sand Creek Trail, but just understanding how you would all plan to mitigate the incidental waste.
And I just want to clarify, by incidental waste, do you mean hazardous waste? Or do you
No,
mean
no,
just trash?
incidental, so a random newspaper, things of that sort. That wouldn't, just because it's a messy process as things are baled and whatnot, that there's random newspaper, random office paper, random plastic, random stuff that falls off a truck. It's going between wherever it's being collected to your facility, and it's traveling through a historically underrepresented part of the city. How would that process be mitigated or be aided so it's not perceived or adding to waste in that part of the city? Does that make sense? Does my question make sense?
So thank you for the question, Commissioner. So from out on the streets, right, like for us especially, we can't control what our third parties do. We do have expectations of them coming in, whether that's being tarped, stuff like that. We have very high expectations of our drivers. We don't want anything from our vehicles going out in the community. We want to get those to the facility so that we can sell those. That would be optimal, right? At the facility, that's the beauty of it being indoors. I mean, obviously, anything that windblown litter within the site, we're going to pick that up immediately. But one of the beauty about it being an indoor facility where really that's where the material's coming out when it's being dumped, right? It's all going to be conducted indoors. It's going to be dumped indoors. They're going to leave with nothing left in their trailer or truck. And so that's one of the reasons that we intentionally did that, was so that our facility would stay clean, where that we're not putting anything out into the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question to enhance around the traffic study. So Commissioner Ingram asked a question around traffic. And did the traffic study take into consideration the low bridge height coming from Brighton Boulevard, where it would really be difficult to get a large truck under those bridges and what the traffic impact means to 60th Avenue?
So I'll start at the beginning there, and please, Art, if I need to correct me, please do. So I know exactly what bridge you're talking about. So if you look into the facility here, they're not coming in and out of the same entrance. They're coming in the main entrance, going into the building and going back out the east side.
So all of the traffic would be off of 60th Avenue at the red light camera intersection?
And that's where the traffic study was conducted, where we showed minimal impact.
And you said how many trucks a day?
85 of the recycle trucks, but 452 vehicles overall. So the rest would be passenger vehicles.
So on top of the additional vehicles that pass through that intersection every day, and I think about semi-trucks who get out of first gear, and we know this from 104th, get out of second gear, and by the time they're in the intersection, the light is red around that 60th Avenue. I mean, we see it all the time, and we've heard it multiple times around trains and in the community of folks being able to access or get through an intersection. So I think, has that been part of the traffic study? Or we're just saying, oh, the number is the number, and now we're stuck with, 20 trucks trying to make a left turn at 7 o'clock in the morning when there's major high volumes of traffic?
Yeah.
Hi, Commissioners. Eli Farney, Jar Engineering. I'm the traffic consultant on the project.
Okay.
I'm actually going to go to another slide we have. Just bear with me. So yes, we did look at the 60th Avenue and Vasquez intersection, and we did show with an opening day condition that there would be minimal delay, addition to delay of less than 2%, which is within Adams County criteria. But CDOT is planning to do improvements at that intersection starting in 2024, which will help to alleviate traffic in general at that intersection.
So with the improvements of CDOT, this traffic study only takes into consideration today's improvements, not the future improvements, or what does that look like?
We did look at today's condition, and we did look at the future improvements. And obviously, the future improvements address a lot of the traffic issues, both in the background condition and with the project. But the project alone just adds minimal delay to the intersections. It's under 2% delay.
So I know this isn't part of the case, but with the CDOT improvements, so I drive this intersection every day, and there is always a backup in the right lane getting onto 270 all the way past the intersection of what we're talking about, the red light cameras, if that makes sense. And so as I think about where additional traffic comes from in the form of big trucks, we are saying that there's, I'm going to call it a nominal impact to traffic at this point with the approval of this conditional use permit?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so another question for the applicant related to some of the things that was said in the presentation around being best stewards of the property as possible, and really related to conditions that we see before us in this conditional use permit. So we have a conditional use of some fire mitigation and emergency preparedness plans as a condition A. We have a condition B of copies of applicable state and federal regulatory agency permits and shall be inspected and provided to the planning division prior to commencement, keyword prior to commencement of operations. Item 3, methane detection, pretty straightforward and I think pretty standard. But as I start to think about this in your presentation, you noted that all operations will be conducted indoors. And with that, that's a very good plan. But as Mike Tyson says, well, anyway, we'll leave Mike Tyson out of this. I'll leave it like that. But where I'm going with this is that we know that we have Waste Management on the other side of the road. And their plan is supposed to be indoors all the time. And if you drive by and you looked on the opposite side of 270, so we have to keep in mind that you are above and looking down as anybody drives through Commerce City. And the Waste Management site is very, very unsightly in terms of debris hanging outside of the indoor facility, if that makes sense. And I'm not talking just a little bit. I'm talking a heck of a lot. And so, at least for this board, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud that there should probably be another condition around free of debris outside the major structure that is there. So making sure that the site is sightly, even when I've heard on Board of Adjustments at the time, there will not be any of this, any of that, any of this, and you drive by and it's this. So regardless of this board, regardless of this planning division, and regardless of the city council that is today or in the future, I believe I will be recommending some additional criteria to keep the site clean of debris. And then lastly, around the improvements on the landscape. So that area does not have curb and gutter. And we noticed the site plan, but I couldn't really tell because it's pretty small if there's improvements to curb and gutter in that area.
I may defer to their engineer, Jim Fitzmaurice.
Hi, Jim Fitzmaurice, JR Engineering. I would mention, you were talking about the traffic. I think we did go through a process with Public Works, obviously, in getting their approval on the traffic. But regarding the curb and gutter, are you talking about 60th Avenue, or you're talking about internal?
Directly in front of the site. So I believe if you drive back there.
Which is like a frontage road, basically, for CDOT. Yes, we're installing curb and gutter. You see, I think, curb and gutter going from the entrance towards the east, but we're going to be adding a turn lane coming into the site. But we're also adding curb and gutter all the way to the west, and a sidewalk and landscaping and drainage improvements along 60th as part of the project.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't believe that I have any other kind of commentary. Oh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Aaron Bradley, Regional Vice President for Waste Connections. Regarding your concern with waste management across the street, so being a competitor of ours, I don't know, we don't have a lot in common with waste management, I guess, other than we both have waste in our name. But that transfer station does over 2,000 tons a day, and it's trash, as he would know, running routes. This MRF recycling facility will do 350 tons a day, and it's much, much cleaner. So from a volume standpoint and the ability to keep up, it is night and day versus what they're doing, what we are proposing. And to go back to your concern, we have this a lot at our transfer stations and MRFs, but we will hire a full-time employee to essentially pick up and do other responsibilities around the facility. And here in Colorado, we don't pay any employees less than $17 an hour with full benefits. So even that job is definitely respectable in the community.
Thank you for that. Not that I want to get into class and comp, but I think at $17 an hour, you're going to have a hard time finding someone to keep that position filled?
Well, that's just a minimal that we have.
Okay,
We understand. We will pay what the market demands.
thank you for that. All right, I believe, do we have any more questions from the commissioners? Seeing none, anybody from the public signed up to speak? Yes, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
My apologies, Commissioners. Wendy Nafziger, Business Development Manager for the Economic Development Division here at the city. If it's okay, I just wanted to mention a couple things. This is a economic development project that we are in support of. A couple of things that they didn't mention that might be that are economically driving this project. $44 million project. Obviously, that's a great injection of money into our community. Also, the cleanup, the brownfield cleanup. Always want to see brownfield cleanup, and this is a great use, especially being that it's all going to be contained, and they're going to guarantee there's no trash flying around, or not trash, recycled materials. Also, I just wanted to emphasize that this facility being state-of-the-art, with people coming in all the time to visit, will encourage more green business and hopefully some spin-off businesses that are going to be attracted to Commerce City, not necessarily of this same caliber, but of other kinds of green businesses in the area. So we are in support of this project.
Thank you, Wendy from Economic Development of Commerce City.
If I may, I know that having someone address the commission from the Economic Development Department is probably a little bit outside of the usual, especially expressing support for any project. I just want to remind you that despite what is presented, it's still your obligation to apply the facts to the code and make an unbiased decision with regard to whether this should be approved or not. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So seeing no one else here to speak around the presentation provided for a conditional use permit, I would like to make a motion for the project. So I got a bunch of chicken scratches here, so bear with me. Here we go. I move that the Planning Commission enter a finding that the requested conditional use permit for the property located at 4150 East 60th Avenue contained in case CU-130-23 meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such findings, recommend that the City Council approve the conditional use permit subject to the following conditions. Condition A, a fire mitigation and emergency preparedness plan shall be supplied to South Adams County Fire and to the Community Development Department upon approval of the South Adams County Fire Department. All fires shall be immediately reported to the South Adams County Fire Department. Condition B, copies of any applicable state or federal regulatory permits and inspections shall be provided to the Planning Division prior to commencement of operations. C, condition, methane detection and control devices shall be installed in all structures where and when deemed necessary by the Fire Marshal of Adams County Health Department. Condition D, and this is what I mean, no outdoor storage of recyclable material. Condition E, the site shall be kept clean of debris outside of the recycling, I called it structure. I'm letting my attorney write this real quick. And then condition E, and I know this is a little slippery, but all operations will be conducted indoors. I think those are reasonable for the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Do we have any board conversation? And before I call for the vote, I'll call on you, Jennifer. Do we have any concerns? Seeing none, I want to give pause and let our principal planner, Jennifer Jones, talk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just suggest if it was acceptable to the commission to see if the applicant wanted to either ask any questions or follow up or provide any rebuttal on the proposed conditions,
Absolutely.
or if they agree to them.
Thank you for bearing with me. I just wanted to consult briefly with the applicant and their attorney. At this time, with regards to your final condition, which I believe was F, that all operations be conducted indoors, their suggestion was that they would say that all recycling processes will be conducted indoors. Did I get that correct?
All recycling processing.
Pardon?
All recycling processing.
All recycling processing will be conducted indoors. And I also would like to just generally ask you to bear in mind or just consider that where we have other means of enforcement, for example, the authority or the ability to cite a property if they have trash or debris outside around on their property, I just encourage you to give consideration to whether you still want to tie that as a condition to the CUP, rather than to allow, code enforcement to handle an issue that may be able to be addressed and not necessarily need to be tied to the CUP. It's just something for you to consider in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Hayter. I will say the enforcement piece is especially around condition E or the additional conditions, at least from my perspective, is really just to make sure that the site is in compliance and that our enforcement has a tool if the site becomes unsightly or anything like that. So that is the reason, and I'll say that for the record. I just want to make sure that from what we've heard in the presentation, that these are reasonable conditions. And so with that, I would like to keep it with the amenable, so I'm gonna do condition E, all operations will be conducted. And what did we say again? I just want to make sure we have for the record. Indoor processes? Recycling processes are indoors. There we go. I just want to make sure, and we can go back for what that looks like, but I think those are reasonable. So we have a motion, a second, and we've had. Okay. So I'm going to look to the attorney at this point because I know he's going to be the one that has to write this. So we may give pause for a second, and if you need me to, I will.
So the motion as stated is that which appears on the penultimate page of your packet, I believe, which was the recommended motion. And then it added the following, condition D, no outdoor storage of recyclable materials. E, the site shall be kept clean of debris outside of the recycling structure. And F, all recycling processing will be conducted indoors.
Correct.
So that is the motion as stated and seconded.
Are we clear? All right, so we have a motion, a second with conditions, A, B, C, D, and E, as stated by the city attorney. And if seeing no other board conversation, can we please call for the vote? The vote results are in, 5 yes, 0 no. Congratulations on a favorable recommendation for the conditional use permit to City Council. All right, on to, I believe, commission business now. I believe we do have some commission business to take care of around election of officers. And so I believe we are able to do that tonight with this body as sitting. I guess I'll look to the city attorney, or who's going to help us tally votes, I guess. We have positions around the chairman of the board. We have
I'm sorry.
and the vice chairman of the board to elect tonight. I don't recall how we've done this in the past. I mean, I do, but I don't know if it was entirely right. So I just want to make sure that maybe we go for a motion to elect the chairman of the board, and then we will do a second motion for a motion to elect the vice chair of the board.
I guess I would encourage, so that your rules of procedure require a chairperson and a vice chairperson. So I think probably the best way to do it is to take nominations, or even self-nominate, I guess, so that we know who would like to express an interest, or who you want to have nominated for that position. And then we can take a vote, based on those people and how you want to do that. And hopefully we won't have ties. And if we get to a ties, maybe right now you want to decide if you have a tie, you want to flip a coin or something. We've done that to decide council members in the city. So it's not unusual to have to get down to that. But it might be better to make that quick decision right now before you get to that event. If you end up with more than one nominee, and depending on how the votes go, I don't know. I haven't done the math and the numbers to figure out what we're going to end up with. So I'd suggest doing that, and then we can, first we'll do a chairperson and then a vice chair.
So around procedure, are we able to talk to each other real quick to see if anyone's interested, or do we just
Absolutely.
give a?
You can have a conversation amongst yourselves. This is,
All right, very good. Just want to make sure I'm following rules here.
so, I mean, there's really no rules around this. The only requirement really is that we're supposed to do this at the first regular meeting following the regular appointment or reappointment of members by city council. And we've been unable to do that. We've been unable to do that, I think, previously because of just logistics and who is here and who wasn't here, and having permanent members here and things of that nature.
So I believe it's safe, based on the attorney recommendation, that we're able to go ahead and elect officers. So I guess I would just like to see a show of hands of who might be interested in the chairman of the board, and then secondly, the
Chairperson.
Chairperson of the board, right?
Chairperson and vice chair.
Anyone interested in chairperson of the board of planning commission? And I'll raise my hand. Okay.
Well, you got at least one vote coming.
All right, so let's go ahead and vote on that first.
Procedurally, Mr. City Attorney, this should only be regular members, correct?
No, nothing prohibits those sitting here tonight from voting,
Okay.
or requires that it just be a regular member.
Okay.
But the persons who can serve need to be regular members.
Correct, yes. I was referencing voting, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll make a motion for Andrew Amador to be the chairperson of the planning commission. So I guess we'll do it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Seeing none, so I believe everyone voted, so it's a unanimous chairperson of the board effective after today, Andrew Amador. Sounds a little weird, I feel like I'm electing myself. Okay, so do we have anyone interested in the vice chair of the Planning Commission Board? All right, very good. So,
Anybody
thank you.
else?
Yeah.
Let's ask that question too.
Seeing none, so I move that Garrett Biltoff be nominated as an officer as vice chairman of the board. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Seeing none, congratulations, Garrett, for vice chair of the Planning Commission. I believe that takes care of our board officer nominations. Don't know that I have anything else in chair or Planning Commission chair or board work. All right.
I
any
think
attorney business?
on commission business, sometime this summer, I will be relocating to Houston, Texas. So I'm not sure exactly when that is, but sometime soon.
I'll say I hope that that's going to be a good move for you. I'm disappointed from at least from this chair for a number of reasons, but certainly we'll be wishing you the best when that time comes.
And humid. All right, keep it professional up here. Any attorney business?
So given that you did the election of officers tonight, before our chairperson and vice chair leave, can I just make sure I have accurate email addresses for you each? I'm out and I will email you both your rules of procedure that were adopted previously so you can just refamiliarize yourself with those. You know, that's just one of the tools that you have, and I just want to make sure you have those. And actually, if anybody else does not have those, let me know, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of those as well. Thanks. That's all I have for you.
Thank you. And I believe that conducts all Planning Commission business for tonight. Oh, wait, sorry. Planning?
Staff business, if you don't mind, Mr.
Sorry.
Chairman.
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know a few things. The cases that you heard tonight will be going to the Planning Commission on will be going before City Council on May 15th, if you're interested to see how those are officially decided by the City Council. You will have a Planning Commission meeting in May, on May 2nd. We also have business for you in June. And I know it is thinking ahead, but July 4th is your July regular Planning Commission meeting, and so it would help staff if you all would think about how you would like to handle that, whether you would like to schedule a special meeting on another day or not have a regular meeting in July.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, for that. So I can tell you I will not be spending my 4th of July at the Planning Commission meeting, so maybe there is some conversation. I don't know if folks have access to their calendar, but I would think that most folks would possibly want to move it to the second week of July and what that looks like. I don't know. I'm open to that.
If I may. Pursuant to your rules of procedure, if you have a meeting that falls on a holiday, your rules provide that your meeting should occur the next day. So pursuant to the rules, you would have the meeting on Wednesday.
That really puts a flail on the camping plans. Again, so do we have to make maybe a motion now or some kind of determination? But I would suspect that most of us would do the second week of July. At least I'm in favor of that. I don't know, board.
I just wanted to bring it to the commission's attention. We can certainly discuss it at the May meeting or something like that. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. So as you mentioned, right, if everyone's going to be out of town on the 5th, it would just be helpful for us to know that meeting is not a possibility. And then if we need to contact you to potentially create a special meeting, we could do that. I don't know at this time if we'll have business. It just helps us to plan ahead. So like I said, I know it's only April, but it comes quickly, right? And so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. You could certainly maybe think about it, and then we could discuss it at a future meeting.
Thank you for that.
Additionally, the second meeting, or the second Tuesdays, are Board of Adjustment. The third Tuesdays are Derby meetings. So keep that in mind too when you're trying to reschedule your meeting.
And the Mondays would be city council meetings, right? So Mondays are planning, or I don't know if
You can
there's.
kick them out.
I was just saying, at what point would we necessarily know that there was business in July?
We would know at the latest the June meeting. So.
All right, well, we'll just, we're going to punt for right now until we have more certainty, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Now, I don't have the rest of the agenda, so I don't believe there's any more staff business, and with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you, commissioners.